Daniel had lived on the edge of the colony for almost 3 years. His small quarters were built from recycled metal and glass, patched together like most of the frontier homes. He was an engineer, trained on Earth before being assigned to the outer rim station called HFY. Life here was quieter than the crowded human cities, but it was also lonelier. The station was shared with several alien groups, and while trade and peace were agreed on, trust was still thin. Humans were often seen as temporary visitors, while the aliens believed themselves to be the long-lasting settlers of this part of space. Daniel did not mind being underestimated. He preferred it, actually. If the alien council thought of him as a quiet, harmless human engineer, then no one would question the long hours he spent tinkering in his workshop. Behind the locked doors of his quarters, he worked on something, far beyond simple repairs, something no one was supposed to know about. Still, daily life had to continue, and even a secretive engineer needed help with ordinary things. The station was dusty, food had to be prepared, and the constant maintenance of his small home wore him down. That was how Lyra entered his life. She was from the Yalthine, one of the taller, graceful alien species on Nerith 5. Her clan had once been powerful but lost status after a political defeat. Many Yalthine took jobs far beneath their heritage, and Lyra was one of them. She became a maid, working quietly in human homes, cleaning, organizing, and keeping things in order. Daniel had not wanted anyone near his quarters at first. The idea of an alien walking around his space while he was hiding a dangerous invention made him nervous. But eventually he agreed when the colony administration insisted on regular inspections and proper housekeeping. Hiring Lyra was the easiest way to avoid suspicion. At first, their relationship was professional and distant. Lyra would enter silently, her long silver hair tied neatly behind her, her deep-colored eyes lowered in respect. She moved with careful steps, her light gray uniform always spotless. Daniel would nod at her, sometimes muttering a short thank you and return to his work. They hardly exchanged more than a few words each day. She seemed content with the distance, and Daniel felt safer keeping things that way. But life has a strange way of turning even small, routine moments into turning points. One evening, Daniel was deep in his workshop. The doors were supposed to be sealed. He had rerouted the locks so no one could enter without his permission. The machine before him was glowing faintly, a prototype reactor no larger than a desk. It pulsed with energy, a living heartbeat of light and hum. His hands were covered in grease as he adjusted the stabilizer, whispering calculations to himself. He was so focused that he did not hear the door slide open. Lyra stepped inside. She had not meant to intrude. She thought he had left the workshop, empty while he prepared for his evening meal. Carrying a folded sheet she had cleaned earlier, she wanted to place it neatly on the side table. But when the door opened, and her eyes fell upon the sight before her, her entire body froze. Daniel looked up at last. His heart nearly stopped when he saw her standing there. The glow of the prototype reflected in her wide eyes. Her expression, one of complete shock. She dropped the sheet she had been holding. It drifted slowly to the ground, forgotten. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The silence was heavy, broken only by the quiet hum of the reactor. Daniel felt his chest tighten. This was the moment he had always feared. Someone had seen his secret. And not just anyone. An alien maid who had no reason to trust him. Lyra's voice was soft when it finally came. "What is this?" Daniel wiped his hands quickly on a rag, trying to think fast. "You weren't supposed to be here." His words came out sharper than he intended. "You need to leave now." But Lyra did not move. Her gaze was fixed on the reactor. This is not possible. Humans do not build this. Not alone. Not here." Her tone was not mocking, but filled with disbelief. Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm not like most humans," he said quietly, "and you've seen too much." Still, she did not turn away. Instead, she took a cautious step closer, as if drawn by the strange light. "If the council sees this," she whispered, "they will take it from you. They will take everything." Her words made Daniel stiffen. It was true. If the alien council learned what he was working on, they would seize it in the name of safety. He would be labeled reckless or dangerous, perhaps even expelled from the station. But what pained him more was that his work, something that could save entire colonies from power shortages, would be locked away forever. Daniel took a breath. That's why no one can know. His voice was calm, though his hands trembled slightly. Not your people, not the council, not anyone. Do you understand? Lyra's eyes finally shifted to his face. For the first time, she seemed to truly see him, not just as the quiet human who hired her, but as someone carrying a secret heavy enough to crush him. She hesitated, torn between duty and something deeper she did not fully understand. I should report this, she said slowly. Her voice wavered, but her posture remained straight. It is my responsibility. Anything dangerous must be told to the authorities. Daniel met her gaze firmly. Do what you think you must, he replied. But know this. This machine is not a weapon. It is a chance. A chance to make life better, to give energy where there is none, to keep colonies alive. If you tell them, they will bury it and nothing will change. If you don't, he paused, choosing his words carefully. If you don't, maybe together we can protect it. Lyra looked back at the glowing reactor. Her throat tightened as she tried to speak, but no words came. She felt the weight of her clan's shame. The long years of being told her people had fallen, and the quiet humiliation of working as a maid. And yet in this small human's workshop, she was witnessing something extraordinary. The sheet she had dropped still lay at her feet. Slowly she bent down, picked it up and pressed it against her chest. Without another word, she turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind her. Daniel exhaled a shaky breath. His hands were still trembling. He had no idea what choice she would make, whether she would betray him or guard his secret. But one thing was certain. His quiet, hidden life had just changed forever. That night, as he sat beside the reactor, he could still see her face in his mind. The way her eyes had widened, the way she had frozen, caught between fear and awe. He realized that for better or worse, Lyra was now part of his story. The next morning began like any other on Nareth 5. The station's artificial sun glowed across the transparent panels, bathing the colony in soft golden light. Shops opened slowly. Workers shuffled through corridors, and the usual voices of different species filled the air. To Daniel, it all felt strangely normal after what had happened last night. He made himself a cup of strong coffee, but his mind was restless. He could not stop thinking about Lyra. The image of her wide eyes frozen on the reactor burned in his mind. He replayed the moment over and over, wondering if she had already gone to the council, if soldiers were even now walking toward his door. Every sound in the corridor made him tense. But when the door opened, it was not soldiers. It was Lyra herself. She entered quietly, as she always did, carrying a small basket of supplies. Her uniform was neat, her steps graceful, but Daniel noticed something different. She kept her eyes down, refusing to meet his gaze. "Morning," Daniel said carefully. "Morning," she answered, her voice even softer than usual. He set his cup down. "So, you didn't report me?" Lyra paused, her hands tightening slightly around the basket. Finally, she placed it on the table and turned toward him. Her dark eyes lifted, filled with conflict. No, not yet. The words gave him only partial relief. Not yet was different from never. "Why?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. She searched for words, her lips pressing together before she finally spoke. "Because I wanted to know why you built it. Why would a human take such risk? If the council finds out, you could lose everything. Why do this?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. He had known the question would come. "Because the colonies are starving for energy," he said simply. "The frontier is struggling. People ration power every day. Families sit in the dark. Farms can't keep their crops alive. I've seen children freezing on outer stations because the power failed during the night. I couldn't ignore it." Lyra's brow furrowed. But this is not Earth's problem. Why not leave it to the Yalthine Council or the trade guilds? Why carry such weight alone? Daniel gave a dry laugh. Because the council debates endlessly and the guilds only care for profit. They'll let people suffer until someone pays enough credits. I can't wait for them. I'd rather build something myself. For the first time, Lyra saw the fire in his eyes, the determination that had driven him to spend endless nights in that workshop. He was not reckless, he was relentless. Still, she shook her head. One human cannot change the galaxy. Daniel's voice was quiet but steady. Maybe not. But one human can light a spark. The words lingered in the air. Lyra looked away, unsettled. She had grown up hearing her elders call humans impulsive, short-lived, unreliable. Yet here he was, speaking with a conviction she had never seen among her own people. For the rest of the morning she worked silently, dusting the shelves, straightening the rooms, but her mind was far away. She thought about her clan's fall, from Grace, about the endless shame of bowing before alien councils that once feared her family's name. She thought about how Daniel had looked at her, not as a servant, not as a fallen noble, but as someone who had a choice. By midday, she found herself standing outside the workshop door. The memory of the glowing machine made her heart beat faster. She knew she should walk away, but instead she lifted her hand and knocked gently. Daniel opened the door, surprised. "You want to come in?" She nodded. "Show me." For a moment, he considered refusing. The reactor was dangerous knowledge for anyone to hold. But he also realized that secrecy alone would not save him. If she was truly curious, perhaps understanding would bind her closer to the truth. He stepped aside. "Come in." The workshop smelled of oil and heated metal. The reactor sat in the center, humming quietly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra walked closer, her steps slow, almost reverent. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Daniel almost laughed. "Beautiful? It's unstable, half-finished, and held together with parts I scavenged from broken cargo haulers. But it lives," she said softly. "I can feel it." He watched her carefully. "So now you know what it is. A compact fusion reactor. Small enough to fit in one room, strong enough to power an entire colony for years. No need for trade guild fuel. No more rations. No more freezing in the dark." Lyra's fingers twitched, as if resisting the urge to reach out. "If this is true, then the council will not allow you to keep it. They will take it for themselves." Daniel gave a bitter nod. "Exactly why it has to stay hidden, and why I need you to keep quiet." Her gaze flicked to him sharply. "You trust me? A maid from a fallen clan, who has every reason to trade this secret for her family's honor?" Daniel's expression was calm. "I trust that you'll decide for yourself. I'm not going to beg or threaten. If you betray me, then so be it. But if you don't, maybe you'll see what I'm trying to do." The honesty startled her. No manipulation, no commands, just simple truth. It felt strange, almost heavy, in her chest. That night she sat alone in her quarters, unable to sleep. She imagined herself, walking to the council hall, speaking the words that would restore her family's name. The human hides forbidden technology. It would be easy. But then she pictured Daniel's tired eyes, the steady tone in his voice when he spoke about children freezing in the dark. Her heart pulled in two directions. Days passed, and her choice remained unspoken. But slowly, without realizing it, she began helping. She would tidy his workshop while he was away, carefully placing tools in order. She would bring him spare parts she found in discarded bins, pretending they were accidents. She would watch the corridor more carefully than before, warning him when inspectors walked nearby. Daniel noticed, of course. One evening, he looked up from the reactor and said, "You're protecting me." Lyra stiffened. "I am only doing my work." He smiled faintly. "Sure. And your work just happens to include hiding contraband power converters in a laundry basket?" Her face warmed, but she did not answer. From that day forward, their unspoken partnership grew. She still carried baskets and cleaned rooms, but now she also carried pieces of his dream. She still lowered her eyes like a maid, but in the workshop, she raised them to meet his. Outside their quarters, however, rumors began to spread. Energy readings were unusual near Daniel's section. Neighbors whispered about late-night humming noises. The council dispatched inspectors more often. One afternoon, as Daniel tightened a coolant valve, Lyra entered in haste. Her face was pale. "They are coming again tonight, a full search." Daniel cursed under his breath. He looked at the reactor, its core glowing steadily. "If they find this, it's over." Lyra stood frozen, fear gripping her. She had reached the edge of her choice, to hide with him, or to step aside and let the council crush his dream. Her heart pounded. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. Daniel looked at her, his voice firm but gentle. "I don't want you to do anything. I want you to choose. If you help, it's because you believe in it, not because I forced you." The weight of his words pressed deep into her chest. She realized that in this hidden workshop, with this reckless human, she had more freedom of choice than she had ever felt under her own people's rule. That night, as the station lights dimmed, the sound of heavy boots echoed through the corridors. The inspectors were coming, and in that moment Lyra knew she had to decide, not only Daniel's fate, but her own. The inspectors came that night just as Lyra had warned. Their heavy boots pounded against the metal floor, their voices sharp and demanding. Daniel stood at the door, his heart racing, while Lyra quietly moved about the quarters, hiding evidence, with quick and clever hands. When the inspectors entered, they found nothing. They searched the rooms, tapped against walls, and scanned for unusual readings. But everything looked ordinary. The tools were neatly stacked, the shelves dust-free, and the faint hum of the reactor was muffled beneath layers of hidden shielding Lyra had arranged earlier. One officer narrowed his eyes at Daniel. "We will be back," he warned, before turning on his heel. The others followed, their boots echoing down the corridor until silence returned. Daniel exhaled, sinking into a chair. He glanced at Lyra, who stood with calm poise, though he could see the tension in her shoulders. "You saved me," he said quietly. She lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I saved the machine," but both of them knew that was not the whole truth. From that night on, their relationship began to change. Daniel no longer saw Lyra only as a maid. She had proven herself clever, resourceful, and brave. She had risked her safety to shield his secret, and Lyra no longer saw Daniel as just an employer. She saw a human who trusted her with the one thing most precious to him. That trust carried weight. The following days passed in a strange rhythm. Daniel worked long hours on the prototype reactor, his hands greasy, his mind always calculating. Lyra moved quietly around him, cleaning tools, arranging parts, even handing him equipment before he asked. At first she did this silently, but soon Daniel began explaining his work to her. "This valve regulates the coolant flow," he said one evening, pointing at a small copper tube. "If it overheats, the whole system fails. Watch." He twisted the valve slightly, and the hum of the reactor shifted. Lyra leaned closer, fascinated. "Too much coolant and the reaction slows," Daniel explained. "Too little and it burns out." Lyra frowned. "It is like tending fire." Daniel smiled. "Exactly. But this fire could power 100 homes." She listened intently, absorbing every word. Though she had never trained as an engineer, her sharp mind quickly grasped the basics. Within a week, she was assisting him, checking stabilizers, adjusting screws, even suggesting small changes that made the work smoother. Daniel found himself surprised by her insight. "You're a natural," he said. Her eyes lowered modestly. "My clan once studied sciences. Long ago, before we lost our place. I thought those days were gone." Daniel studied her expression, noticing the shadow of sadness behind her calm voice. "Maybe not gone," he said gently. "Maybe just waiting." For a moment their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, a fragile bond forming through shared work and trust. Outside the workshop, the colony's dough, tensions grew. The council increased patrols, and whispers about human engineers spread through the markets. Some aliens claimed humans were reckless, meddling with things they did not understand. Others wondered if humans might one day surpass them. Daniel and Lyra kept their secret close, but in their hidden corner of the station they found an odd peace. Each evening after hours of work, Daniel would wipe his hands clean and prepare a simple meal. Sometimes they ate in silence. Other times Lyra would share stories of her clan's former glory, tales of grand halls, shining towers, and knowledge, lost after political defeat. Daniel listened carefully, never mocking her pride, never dismissing her pain. And in return she began to ask about Earth, about the green forests, the blue oceans, the endless cities. He told her of the busy streets filled with laughter, the warmth of family dinners, and the drive humans had to rebuild no matter how many times they fell. "You always rise again," she said one evening, almost to herself. "Even when no one believes in you." Daniel chuckled softly. Maybe that's all we're good at. Falling, then standing up again. Lyra looked at him with quiet admiration. Their bond deepened with each passing day, but so did the danger. One night, as Daniel tightened the final bolts on the reactor's casing, the lights flickered. The hum wavered dangerously, and sparks danced across the floor. "Coolant's dropping," Daniel shouted. Without hesitation, Lyra rushed to the valve, twisting it with steady hands. The hum steadied, the glow returned to normal, and silence fell again. Daniel stared at her. You just saved it." Her lips curved slightly, the hint of a smile rare on her usually calm face. "You said it was like fire. Fire must be tended." Daniel laughed, shaking his head. "Remind me never to underestimate you." That night, he could not sleep. He kept thinking about her, the way she moved without fear, the way she seemed to understand him without needing words. She was more than just an ally now. She was becoming a partner. The next morning, Lyra arrived earlier than usual. She carried not just cleaning supplies, but also a small pouch. From it, she pulled out a set of rare alloy tools. Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Where did you get those?" She glanced away. "They were discarded by a merchant ship. I repaired them." He frowned, half amused. "You repaired tools in secret and brought them here?" She nodded simply. "If you can build a reactor in secret, I can at least bring tools." Daniel laughed. "Fair enough." Together they worked on fine-tuning the reactor's shielding. Hours passed quickly, filled with soft conversation and the hum of machinery. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt he was not alone in his burden. But peace never lasted long on Nerith 5. One evening, as they finished their work, a loud announcement rang through the station. "Attention, all residents. The Council will begin random energy sweeps tomorrow. Prepare for inspection." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Energy sweeps? They'll detect the reactor no matter how well we hide it." Lyra's face was pale. "Then we must move it." "Move it?" Daniel repeated, almost laughing at the impossibility. "It weighs more than 3 men and it's unstable. If we try to shift it, it could blow." Her gaze was steady. "If we do not move it, they will find it. If they find it, all is lost. We have no choice." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his chest tight. He looked at her, at the calm determination in her eyes. Somehow she looked steadier than he felt. Finally he nodded. "Then we move it." The next day, while the colony buzzed with preparations, Daniel and Lyra worked in secret. They carefully dismantled parts of the reactor, securing them into crates. Lyra carried components with surprising strength, her long arms steady, her movements precise. Daniel guided her, warning her of unstable pieces. Hours later, as the artificial sun dimmed, the reactor was packed into sections. Together they hauled it through maintenance corridors, moving silently through the shadows. Every step was a risk. If they were seen, It would all end. At one point, Daniel stumbled, nearly dropping a crate. Lyra caught it, her hands firm. "Do not fall now," she whispered. Daniel gave a breathless laugh. "Remind me again why I let you talk me into this." "Because you cannot do it alone," she replied simply. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and realized she was right. He could not do it alone. Not anymore. That night, they found a hidden storage chamber deep in the station's lower levels. Dust covered the walls, and no one had entered for years. There, they rebuilt the reactor piece by piece. When the final section clicked into place, Daniel stepped back exhausted. The machine hummed quietly, alive once more. He turned to Lyra, his chest heavy with gratitude. "You've risked everything for this," he said softly. She looked at him with calm eyes. "Not for the machine," she corrected. "For what it means." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He nodded slowly. Outside, the colony prepared for inspections. Inside the hidden chamber, a human and an alien stood side by side, their bond forged in trust and danger. The machine pulsed with steady light, a symbol of what they could achieve together. Neither of them knew what tomorrow would bring. But, in that moment, they were not maid and master, not alien and human. They were partners, two lives bound by a secret that could change the fate of many. The hidden chamber became their sanctuary. Daniel and Lyra worked side by side, their hands stained with grease and their clothes carrying the smell of metal. The hum of the reactor was steady now, stable enough to run for weeks without interruption. Yet the shadow of the council loomed larger each day. Energy sweeps had begun across Nerith 5. The officers carried scanners, moving from home to home, searching for signs of unauthorized devices. Daniel and Lyra watched from the shadows as neighbors were questioned, as doors were forced open, as frightened colonists handed over equipment. The fear spread like smoke through the station. Inside their chamber, Daniel tightened a bolt with shaking hands. "It's only a matter of time," he muttered. "They'll find us eventually." Lyra adjusted a stabilizer, her expression calm but her eyes troubled. "Unless someone speaks first." Daniel paused, turning to look at her. "You mean betrayal?" Her silence was enough of an answer. For days she had wrestled with her thoughts. Her clan was still shamed, their name dragged low. If she revealed the human secret, if she brought the reactor to the council, her people might rise again. She could return her family to honor. The temptation burned in her chest. That evening, she left Daniel alone in the workshop and walked to her quarters. She sat in the dim light, her long silver hair loose around her shoulders, her mind heavy. She imagined standing before the council announcing her discovery. She imagined the proud look on her father's face, the whispers of respect from her people. For the first time in years, the Yalthine clan name would be lifted high again. But then, another image came. Daniel's face. The way he had spoken about freezing children. The way he had trusted her when he could have cast her out. He had given her a choice, not an order. That memory weighed heavier than the promise of honor. Her heart beat faster. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "What do I want more? My clan's pride or his trust?" The question tore at her. The following day, Daniel sensed her unease. He caught her staring at the reactor with distant eyes, her fingers tightening on the tools as if fighting an invisible battle. Finally, he set his wrench down. "Lyra," he said softly, "if you're going to tell them, just tell me first." Her eyes widened. "You think I would?" "I think you're torn," he interrupted gently. "And I don't blame you. You have every reason to give me up. Your people would reward you. They'd restore your clan. You'd have everything you lost." Her throat tightened. "And if I don't?" Daniel met her gaze, his voice calm. "Then you'll have me. Just me. A stubborn human who doesn't know when to quit." The words struck deeper than he realized. She turned away, hiding the heat rising in her chest. That night, everything came to a breaking point. As Daniel repaired the reactor's energy conduit, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the hidden chamber. Harsh voices followed. Lyra, of Hjalthine, a deep voice called. Your clan still has a chance to rise. Come out. Daniel froze, his hands tightening on the conduit. He looked at Lyra. Her face had gone pale. The door slid open, and two Hjalthine figures stepped inside. Tall, armored, their eyes sharp and cold. They were not council officers, they were members of her own clan. One of them spoke firmly. We know what the human hides. We know you have seen it. Bring us the device. Deliver it to the council under our name, and your family will be restored. Lyra stood rigid, her heart pounding. This was everything she had dreamed of. Her chance to bring honor back. She could feel the weight of generations pressing on her shoulders. The second clan member stepped closer, his voice hard. Do not waste this. He is just a human, replaceable. Weak. Our people come first. Daniel said nothing. He simply looked at her, his eyes steady, trusting. The silence stretched, heavy with choice. Finally, Lyra's voice came, quiet but firm. No. The two Hjalthine blinked in shock. No. I will not betray him, she said, her voice stronger, now. Not for honor. Not for a council that buries hope. Not for a clan that only remembers me when I am useful. He trusted me when no one else did. I will not give that up. The Hjalthine sneered. You choose a human over your own blood? Lyra lifted her chin. I choose what is right. Before they could respond, Daniel stepped forward. You heard her. Leave. The clan members glared, but they did not attack. Not here. Not yet. Instead, they spat words like poison. You are a fool, Lyra. You throw away your chance. When the council finds him, you will fall with him. Then they turned and left, their footsteps fading into the corridor. When the silence returned, Lyra felt her knees weaken. Daniel caught her arm, steadying her. You didn't have to do that, he said softly. Her voice trembled. Yes, I did, because if I betrayed you, I would lose myself. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, his chest tight with something he could not name. He finally nodded. Thank you. From that night on, there was no more doubt between them. Their bond was sealed, tested by fire. Lyra no longer worked with hesitation. She worked with purpose. She was not just protecting a machine. She was protecting Daniel's dream and her own choice to stand with him. But the danger was far from over. The next morning, the council announced a new order. All homes will be searched within the week. Any illegal technology will be seized. Resistance will be punished. Daniel cursed under his breath when he heard. It's over. We can't hide it anymore. Lyra's voice was calm but firm. Then we don't hide. We run. Daniel blinked. Run? Where? They'll chase us. She met his gaze steadily. Then we make them chase us. Together. The decision was reckless. It was dangerous. But as Daniel looked at her, at the fire in her eyes, he realized it was the only way left. They began preparations at once, packing supplies, dismantling non-essential parts of the reactor, securing what they could carry. Daniel rewired a portable power core, while Lyra mapped hidden passages through the station. Every hour felt like borrowed time. That evening, as they sat beside the glowing reactor one last time, Daniel spoke quietly. I thought I'd be alone in this. I never expected... He trailed off. Lyra tilted her head. What? He gave a small, tired smile. I never expected you. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the reactor filled the silence, steady and strong, like the bond that had grown between them. Outside, the council tightened its grip. Inside, a human and an alien prepared to defy it, together. The halls of Nerith 5 were louder than usual. Notices glowed on every screen, announcing that the council's officers would begin full inspections within 2 days. Fear spread quickly. People whispered about neighbors dragged away, about homes torn apart. Daniel and Lyra knew their time was almost gone. Inside the hidden chamber, Daniel tightened straps around a crate holding the portable reactor core. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked. His hands were steady, but his chest was heavy with dread. Lyra stood nearby, checking the maps she had drawn from memory of the station's forgotten tunnels. "They'll search here first," Daniel muttered. "The readings will draw them like a beacon." "Then we must move before dawn," Lyra said firmly. "If we wait, they will close every corridor." Daniel nodded, though the thought of moving the unstable machine filled him with fear, but there was no choice. That night, when the colony lights dimmed to simulate dusk, they began. The station was quiet as they pushed the crates through the maintenance passages. The air smelled of rust and stale dust. Daniel led the way, muscles aching as he pulled the heavy load. Lyra walked behind him, alert, her long silver hair tied back, her sharp eyes watching for patrols. At one point, the sound of boots echoed above them. They froze in silence, pressed against the cold walls, until the footsteps passed. Only then did they move again. Finally, after hours of struggle, they reached the lower districts, abandoned storage areas where the council rarely came. There they rebuilt the reactor in a hidden corner, connecting wires with trembling hands. When the final switch was thrown, the hum returned. The light glowed steady, alive. Daniel dropped into a chair, exhausted, and let out a shaky laugh. "We did it." Lyra's eyes softened as she looked at him. "Not yet," she said. "The council will come." As if her words had summoned them, alarms suddenly echoed through the station. A metallic voice announced, "Unauthorized energy signatures detected. All units respond." Daniel's stomach dropped. "They've found us." Within minutes, armored soldiers surrounded the lower district. Their weapons gleamed, their scanners flashing. The leader stepped forward, his voice amplified. "Human engineer Daniel, Yalthine Maid Lyra, you are charged with unlawful possession of forbidden technology. Surrender the device, and you may be shown mercy." Daniel glanced at Lyra. "If we give it up, they'll lock it away forever." Lyra's gaze was steady. "Then we do not give it up." The soldiers advanced. Daniel's hands moved quickly across the reactor's controls. With a loud hum, the machine pulsed, releasing a surge of energy that rippled through the air. Lights above flickered, weapons buzzed, and several patrol drones crashed to the floor. The soldiers stumbled, their systems disrupted. Daniel looked at Lyra with a half-smile. "Guess it works after all." "Then let us make them chase us," she said, gripping a discarded staff for defense. The chase began. Daniel and Lyra ran through the lower corridors, the reactor's core humming inside its portable case. Soldiers shouted, energy bolts sparking against the walls. Daniel stumbled more than once, but Lyra's hand always caught his arm, steadying him, pulling him onward. They reached a large chamber where more soldiers blocked the exit. The leader raised his voice. "Enough. The council commands you to stand down." Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "The council commands, but the people suffer. This machine can save lives. Why bury hope in chains?" Her words echoed across the chamber. Some soldiers hesitated, their eyes flickering with doubt. But the leader barked, "She betrays her own kind for a human. Take them." The soldiers advanced. Daniel opened the reactor case again, hands shaking. "Lyra, cover me." She moved to stand before him, tall and unyielding, staff raised like a shield. When the soldiers fired, she deflected blasts against the metal ground, refusing to fall back. Behind her, Daniel rerouted the reactor's flow, releasing another surge of energy. The chamber shook, lights shattered, and the soldiers were thrown back. For a moment, silence followed. Then, from the shadows, voices rose. Colonists, human and alien alike, had gathered, drawn by the commotion. They saw Daniel's machine, saw Lyra standing firm against armed soldiers, and whispers spread. "She's right. They're hiding something that could help us. Why should the council decide everything?" The crowd's voices grew louder, bolder. The soldiers looked uncertain now, shifting uneasily under the eyes of so many witnesses. Daniel stood, breathing hard, and raised his voice. This machine isn't a weapon. It's a chance for light, for warmth, for survival. If the council takes it, it will vanish into silence. But if we protect it together, it belongs to all of us. The murmurs turned into shouts of agreement. The crowd began stepping forward, placing themselves between Daniel and the soldiers. The leader snarled, "Step aside. This is council law." But one of the younger soldiers lowered his weapon, then another, and another. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "You see? Humans are not weak. They are not reckless children. They are allies. And if you silence this human, you silence the future." Her words struck like thunder. The leader, furious, realized his men would not obey. With a hiss of frustration, he signaled retreat. The soldiers pulled back, leaving the chamber filled with cheering colonists. When the echoes faded, Daniel and Lyra stood together in the glow of the reactor. The crowd surrounded them, offering protection, voices promising to defend the machine. Daniel turned to her, his face filled with awe. "You stood in front of me. You faced them all." Lyra met his gaze, calm but firm. "I chose you. I will always choose you." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, human and alien. Once strangers, now bound by trust and fire. Days later, the council issued no further orders. They could not risk open conflict with the colonists united behind Daniel and Lyra. The machine remained hidden, protected by those who believed in it. Whispers spread beyond Nereth 5, whispers of a human who defied the council and an alien who stood by his side. In the quiet of the workshop, Daniel adjusted a panel on the reactor while Lyra handed him a tool. They worked as they always had. But something had changed. They were no longer alone. They were no longer hiding from each other. Daniel glanced at her with a smile. "Not exactly how I imagined life on the frontier." Her lips curved slightly. "Not exactly how I imagined being a maid." They both laughed, the sound light in the quiet room. The reactor pulsed steadily, a beacon of hope. And beside it stood two unlikely partners, their bond stronger than law, stronger than fear. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.